So creativity is much more than drawing a cat and coloring it in on a Friday afternoon. What do we really need to do if we want our children to be creative? For me, the key word is perspective. As your listeners probably know, it's heavily linked to critical thinking and ethical reasoning, which is a skill that we're desperately crying out for in our schools and our homes right now.
Hi, welcome to Creative Minds Shaping the Future. I'm your host, Emma Palastanga. I'm an educator, author, and now podcast producer, curious to discuss a range of views on creativity and curriculum. I'm absolutely thrilled to be joined by Gavin McCormack, recognised as one of the top 10 most influential global educators. He has taught in multiple countries, is the Montessori Australia ambassador, and a TEDx speaker on how education can change the world. He has built several physical schools, as well as a virtual one, upschool.co, empowering students to learn entrepreneurial skills which have real-life impact. If that isn't enough, he's also a best-selling author of children's books and a book on Montessori education for parents. So Gavin, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us. I'd like to start by asking, how do you define creativity?
So, creativity, I've just been writing about this in a recent book that I've put together. I think there's a misconception around creativity in actual fact. We used to think that creativity was art on a Friday afternoon. Guys, we're going to have creative time now in class. We're going to do art on a Friday afternoon. And of course, we've tried to move away from that. But if we're absolutely honest, and if you visit lots of schools, what you will find is that it's still sitting there on a Friday afternoon, creative arts. But that really does creativity an injustice. It's really not what we're looking for. When you look at the definition of creativity, it's actually being able to look at a problem or a situation from multiple perspectives. So creativity, in actual fact, is heavily linked to critical thinking, ethical reasoning, moral understanding, and data analysis. They're all together. When our children look at a problem, or as adults, and you see this right now in a disinformation or a misinformation era, we're unable to look at a situation from multiple perspectives. We can only look at a situation from maybe our perspective or from the medium by which we're receiving it. So whether it's TikTok or Facebook or Instagram or the BBC News, we seem to be able to not to be able to see a situation or a story from everyone's perspective. So, from a high level perspective, as an adult, you take the Ukraine war, for example, and there are so many players, so many variables, so many people that get impacted, and there's so much time, so much history. The story is not just this week, not just this year. It actually goes on a very long time. So creativity, in actual fact, is being able to take a drone, fly up high, and look at a story or a scenario from so many angles, so many perspectives. And then, once you've had a chance to use your imagination in terms of what might happen in the future, what's happened in the past, and what's happening right now, you can then make a decision. So creativity is much more than drawing a cat and coloring it in on a Friday afternoon. In actual fact, as your listeners probably know, it's heavily linked to critical thinking and ethical reasoning, which is a skill that we're desperately crying out for in our schools and our homes right now.
Look at it and interpret it for ourselves.
Exactly right. And so what do you want as a parent? You put your child into a school. Well, what does success look like? In my opinion, and this is not everyone's opinion, success of today's education system is the citizens that walk down the high street in 25 years' time. That's success. You can't see it now. You actually can't see it right now. Your grades, your points, your rankings, your scores, your test results, your position on the league tables, all of that is null and void in actual fact. What you're trying to do is plant seeds today, which will grow into amazing, strong oak trees that are resilient and they're connected and they can see the world around them and they're protective of all the organisms that sit underneath them. But you won't see that today. You'll see it in 20 years' time. And so what's the ultimate goal? What do we really need to do if we want our children to be creative? For me, the key word is perspective. You need to allow our children to have perspective. And so if they can see the world through so many different eyes, then what they'll try to do is they'll try to make decisions based on what will have the best impact on the entire world around them, rather than, I'm just looking at this on a linear scale. And
Sure.
children don't like to be cheated. They don't like to be manipulated. They don't like to be lied to. And they know, so we know that when we deceive our children, when we break that trust, it is very, very hard to get that trust back.
Mm.
They will tag you as an untrustworthy human being, and they will not listen to you anymore. That's just a fact. That's how the brain works. And so this creativity that we want in our students, it's about giving them that opportunity to see the world through multiple lenses, and then make an informed decision based on where they sit morally, and ethically.
Do you think it's also about giving children the knowledge, although it could be argued that we can find knowledge now, given that we have such open access to the internet, but being able to discern that information and then apply it in different situations?
I mean, of course, the question is this knowledge the knowledge that I need? And is this knowledge the right knowledge?
Sure.
So, we used to go down the route of, go to Google and then we'll take the top hit on Google and that's a fact. We
Yeah.
know actually that's not true. Our children don't necessarily know that's not true. And this is part of digital literacy. This is part of media literacy. You might walk past a newsagent and on the headline of the Daily Mail, it could say, ISIS walk in your supermarkets. Okay. It could say that. In fact, it has said that here in Australia. I remember reading that headline. And as you walk past a newsagent, you see that in the placard outside the newsagent, there is a copy of the Daily Mail, and that is the headline. Now, if you walk past that newsagent every day for 30 days, and the headline is anti-Islamic or Islamophobic, right, let's just say that that was a thing. What will happen is your brain will paint a picture regardless of what you want, because you see it. You didn't buy it, you didn't engage in the article, but the headline was very manipulative, and
Mm.
it embeds itself in your brain and paints a picture of what Islam is, or Muslims are.
Mhm.
Now, that's not true, and it's not fair. It's highly manipulative. What do we need for our future citizens? We need them to be able to see what's going on, to read between the lines, to look
Absolutely.
at that. Because, I've done a lot of work with Professor Mark Williams from MIT, a neuroscientist, and it's really interesting. What happens is when new information arrives in a child's brain or in our brain, new information, the brain will tag it, put a little tag on the synapse to say true or false, or I'm not sure. Now, what we need our students and our children to, and our adults to be able to do, is to be able to look at a headline and go, oh, right. Before I stick that in the hippocampus and keep it forever, let me tag it as I'm not sure or definitely false. And that comes into media literacy. And this, is this education we need for our future generations is being able to see, I know that newspaper, it's owned by Rupert Murdoch. Rupert Murdoch is heavily aligned with this person, therefore they want me to think this
This
thing, and
way. Yeah.
therefore I'm actually going to tag it as I'm not sure or definitely false, but I'm definitely not tagging it as true. And then once it's tagged, either way, true or false, then our students can then seek information to validate, to kind of fact check it in their own brain. Should I believe it or not? I definitely shouldn't. Whenever I walk past the newsagent from now on and see that stuff, I'm just going to completely ignore it. My brain will, in the nighttime when I go to sleep and synaptic pruning happens in my brain about what to keep and what not to keep, it will just push it into the what not to
Not to
keep
keep.
parcel. And that's really important because news and information is coming at our students from all angles. So in our schools, what does it look like? It looks like this. Hey, children, you're going to research volcanoes today. Now, before you present your work to me, you have to prove to me that you have got your information from 3 sources. I won't accept 2. I will not accept 1. I will only accept 3. And that's very similar to if you're running a business and you want to get some quotes. You
Yes.
must always get 3
We
quotes
do.
to the board, and the board will say you've done your due diligence. Now you can, we don't want nepotism in business. So the same goes for our students, but are we giving them enough sources to be able to go to get that knowledge? Can they go and interview a peer? Can they go and make a phone call? Can they send an email? Can they look on the internet? Can they interview a parent? Can they go and talk to the principal? There's so many ways to get information these days. Google, ChatGPT, a book. These things are all good, but let's promote that kind of, hey, before I believe it and tag it as true, I'm going to make sure I've got it from 3 different or more than 3 different places.
Yeah, I think that's really sound advice and a great skill to teach our children with that explosion of knowledge. And you've just listed so many resources that our kids have access to, but it's about how they use that information, which we've talked about. I think that's brilliant, brilliant advice. Thank
Can I
you.
give you a, for your listeners, can I give you this amazing, there's so many. I ran a Montessori school for 5 years here in Sydney. I was a Montessori school principal. And in that school, I had absolute freedom. My board were amazingly supportive, saying, as long as you don't break the rules, as long as you don't break the law and you're in the confines of the curriculum, go for it. And it was amazing what we were able to accomplish. One of the things that I didn't do, but I wish I had have done, which is an idea I wanted to do, and if I had a school now, I would do, is this. I would say to all of my parents, hello, mums and dads, we want to utilize you as a research resource and a skill in the community. Can you fill in this spreadsheet? The spreadsheet says name, phone number, email address, hobby, and job. Okay, so you, for example, you might fill in the thing and say, this is my name, and this is my phone number, this is my email address. My hobby is stamp collecting, for example. Never mind, doesn't matter what your hobby is. And my job actually is I'm a graphic designer. Okay, let's just say that.
Yeah.
Now, in your school, then, this database is available. And it's in the classroom as a printout, it's on a website, doesn't matter where you put it. And at any point, your children can rely upon this list. So me and you, we are 7-year-olds and we are researching, I don't know, the history of, Great Britain. And we want to know all the monarchs and, whatever. It doesn't really matter what we're researching. We go to the database and we say, oh, there's a mum or a dad who's actually a local lecturer at the university and he's a history professor. Why don't we give him a call? So then the children go to the office and knock on the principal's door. Mrs. Thompson, can we use the school database? And she says, yes, of course you can. They flick through. These are 7-year-olds. They flick through and they find, oh, Mr. Stevenson, one of the dads, he's a professor of history at the local University of Cambridge, whatever it's going to be. And they pick up the phone in the principal's office and they dial the numbers. Doot, 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 doot. Hello, Mr. Johnson. This is Tommy and Stephen. We're from, Key Stage 1 at, Pinkerton Primary School, and we're studying monarchs in history. You're wondering, could you come into school? Or do you have any time next week to come and give us a little lesson? And Mr. Johnson, he is so honored by this phone call. He comes in next week and sits down in the class with the group in front of the teachers, not privately, and gives a little seminar, a little lesson for 30 minutes with his children. So many things are at play at that moment. All the life skills the children are developing, the confidence, the using the telephone, the resilience, the speaking and listening, it's all there. All the life skills are there. The parents love it more than you can possibly imagine, being able to help in the school with a purpose. But our students are gaining these skills, this perspective of that, hey, by the way, before I take something as gospel, I better make sure I ask the people I trust. And those people I trust are my parents, my teachers, and the wider community, which all care for me. And so I wish I'd have done that, but any people listening to this, I would highly recommend that's something we can do very quickly in our schools, and the whole community will be engaged with that.
Definitely. I'm not sure how keen parents would be to have their phone numbers and email addresses available for all, but I definitely think we can tap into the resources that are our parents. One of the things that I actually did, I worked in a Montessori school for a while also, and we redecorated the classroom. It was in a farm outbuilding, if you like, and the children did their research on colour therapies, which colours would be, would work well in the classroom. And then we researched floor tiles or carpet, what would be best. And we contacted one of the parents who is a painter decorator, and he came in and helped the children with those skills. And together we painted the classroom. And then we dyed some fabric with natural dyes, and we made cushions because the children said the chairs were uncomfortable. So we created those cushions and we made that environment our own. So yes, I totally support what you've just said there.
Yeah, but I just want to go back to what you said. You might think they don't want their phone numbers, but I'll tell you, I've done some trials in this in schools. So this is what happens actually. You put their phone numbers in a database inside school, and then after 2 months, you'll get parents ringing your school saying, "Hey, I haven't received a phone call yet. Why am I not included? I haven't been into
Oh.
school yet." And they really, we want as a human species, we are connected species. That's what makes us the greatest, the apex predator. We're not the fastest, we're not the smartest. A killer whale, a dolphin is way smarter than us, right? Way smarter than us. Even an elephant is way smarter than us. We are only the top of the food chain for one reason, and that is because we know how to collaborate. You don't find a hive of bees flying to another hive saying, "Hey, by the way, bees, we've been to this field, we've pollinated half the flowers. There's so much nectar there. We've got all we need. You might want to go there and use that." You don't get that. You don't actually get no other creature that does what we do. They go outside their tribe and they look after each other, they collaborate and they share. We do. That's what makes us the apex predator. So we need that in our lives. We want purpose. And
Mm.
so what happens with our parents is it gives them another purpose. I am needed, I am wanted. My skill is utilized not just in my job, not just in my free time, but also I can give back to my school. And you will find that they will be ringing saying, "I haven't had a phone call yet. Why am I not included?" You say, "Well, look, maybe you need to get a better hobby."
And I'd love to hear any schools that listen to this and give it a go. And, please get in touch and let us know how it's going. We'd be really
I
interested to.
would love that too. That would be amazing. Yes.
Um, so you've talked a lot about creativity and its place in education. What's your most memorable lesson, either from your own school days or one that you have taught, and why was it particularly memorable? Why do you think it's stuck in your mind?
I'll tell you two stories.
Okay.
That's fine. So my story, I'm actually from England, where you are now. I live in
Mhm.
Australia because it's a lot sunnier here and the sky's always blue. Just to be fair. But I grew up in Leeds, in the largest council estate in Europe. It was a hard beginning. My mum was a single mum. My dad had already left before I was born, and it wasn't easy. At the very beginning, it was very hard. It was just me and my mum. My mum remarried. I had two brothers, but the situation we were in was not great. It was there was a lot of bullying at school. School was a terrible place to be. It wasn't great. My mum realized this wasn't good, but we didn't have money. So she wanted out. She wanted to move. So she did. And bless her, I owe everything that I am to her in actual fact. She always showed me unconditional love. She was always there to catch me if it went wrong. It was no problem. So we moved to another village on the outskirts of Leeds. Now, we still lived in a council house, but there was a small pocket of council houses amongst a lot of wealthy people with socks that you pull up to your knees and straw hats and things like this.
Mhm.
Now, we went to a local comprehensive school, and she did that to give me a chance, a better chance for the future, and that was great. But it came with its own perils because suddenly now, instead of being a poor kid in a school full of poor kids, I was the poor kid in a school full of kids who had money. And so now came the ridicule, and a lot of it was me putting it on myself. I was self-conscious. My trousers were a bit too short. My shoes were Nicks instead of Nike, and my lunchbox didn't look like other people's. And so I kind of I had to hide who I really was and put on a persona. So school was a real struggle to get through it. But then when I was 16, my geography teacher, Mr. McKenney, and he doesn't know this, and if he's listening and he hears this, and I hope he does, Mr. McKenney changed my whole life, and I haven't told him this, although I've just written a book about him, and it'll be published around the world, and hopefully he will read it and realize what he did. The book doesn't come out until September. It's through Simon and Schuster, the second biggest publisher on the planet. So it will be everywhere. My hope is that, and I tried to find him, but I can't. And I hope that he finds this book and realizes, because the whole book is dedicated to him. But when I was 16, I was sitting in geography class, and I liked geography. Although my predicted grades were E's and F's and D's, and I was really going nowhere, really was going nowhere because it was such a struggle for me to survive. And he pulled me aside after class. He said, "Gavin, can I talk to you?" And I thought, I'm in trouble here. What have I done? And he said, "Look, I know you're having a hard time. I can see it." And suddenly, someone had noticed. Somebody noticed. No one had said anything before. That inside was turmoil, but I was trying to put on a brave face. And he said, I know you're having a hard time. And I saw that on your future job aspirations, you want to be a teacher. And I said, look, I love work. I have a natural, ability to work with children. I babysit for people, la 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 la. And he said, look, you're not going to be a teacher with these grades. Two F's, an E, and a D is not. You're not getting in. He said, I'll tell you what, though. I can see you like geography. There's a spark in your eyes, and I can see you're attentive and you love it. I said, I do like geography, and I do. He'd seen me, and he said, I tell you what. If you can get a C in your A levels, you might just get into Sheffield Hallam University because there's no men on the course. He said, if I give you some things to do over the next 6 weeks before the exams, I reckon you can scrape a C, and a C might just get you in. And this is a true story. So suddenly I was seen and he noticed me and I mattered to him.
Yes.
So and as soon as children know, this is a neurological thing, as soon as children know that their life matters to you, they will trust you 100%. Their brain is on, they'll do whatever you say, they will mirror your actions. Now, I didn't know this until recently when I did the research, but
Yeah.
suddenly it mattered to him. And so I did everything he said. Every day he gave me a task to do. Go home and do this one tonight. Draw a truncated spur. Now draw a diagram of a gorge. Now do this, right? And I did everything. I went to my room and I got a little lamp and a table and I worked away in my bedroom. And then the exams came, A levels. And I got two E's, a D, and a C in geography.
Wow.
Yeah. And the C got me into Sheffield Hallam University, as he'd stated. And then I became a teacher
Wow.
because of that. And now I'm Montessori ambassador for Australia. I'm a school principal. I'm teaching all over the planet. And I never take this life for granted. I don't work for money. I work for change. And I work to be as good as Mr. McKenney was to me. And, he wasn't there all day, every day. But you know what he did? He noticed me. He could see that if with a little bit of support, I could maybe get to where I needed to be. And now, I'm living in Australia. I'm very happy with my life. And it's literally all because of that one moment when he said, can you stay behind after class? I see you. I'm here to support you. Let me help you. And literally has changed my entire life from that
Wow.
one conversation we had. And, I'm so thankful for that. Now I know. I had to reflect, like, how did I get here? I'm not sure how I got here. And then I realized how I got here because of this guy, this one man.
And I totally see from your posts that I follow on social media, on very much on LinkedIn actually, that you talk a lot about connection and loving the child first before you teach them anything. This conversation here illustrates where that's all come from. Just seeing the child for who they are, caring for them, giving them hope, providing opportunity is all it needs really for those children to and yourself to thrive.
Yeah, there's a theory called the theory of mattering, okay? And it's quite a relatively new theory, but it's really interesting to talk to your listeners with this one. So the human brain, I've worked with one of the world leading neuroscientists for the last year, so I'm not a neuroscientist, but I've gathered this information from people who do know. So let's just be clear, that's not my skill set. I'm a primary school teacher. The human brain has one job, and that is to keep you alive. That is it. Everything it does is to keep you alive. Blinking, beating your heart, pumping your blood, learning, listening. It's all about keeping you alive. But unfortunately for the brain, it's too efficient. It's too efficient, meaning it can learn from every angle and every person through touch, taste, smells, everything. Now, the brain is conscious that it doesn't want to learn from everyone because not everyone has your best interests at heart. It only wants to learn from people who it trusts, right? So if it trusts you, it will learn from you. And if it doesn't trust you, it will very quickly just switch off. The reptilian brain switches on and the brain just goes, no, thank you, you're not getting in here. It's not happening today. So the theory of mattering is this. When a child knows that their life matters to you, then they will mimic you, they will mirror you, and they will listen to every word you say. So how can we let them know that they matter? Well, there's a number of ways, but the first one is letting them know that you're interested in their life. So if you stand at the door every day of your kindergarten class and you get down on one knee and you shake every child's hand and you say, hey, good morning, Claudia. I heard you've got a new guinea pig. One day, we'd love you to bring your guinea pig into class. And she said, oh, she doesn't say it, but in her brain does this. You know what? My teacher, that person, that human right there, has spent their free time thinking about my life and they're genuinely interested. They're down on one knee, they're meeting me on my eye level, they're shaking my hand, and they're saying, I'm interested in your life. Your life matters to me.
Mhm.
Now, there was a piece of research that took place at Bristol University, where a teacher stood at the door with her 30 kids, and for 15 of them, she let them know they mattered. She shook their hand on one knee. Hello, Claudia, how's your guinea pig? The other 15, she said, in, let's go, books out, chop, chop, we've got a lot to do. Didn't call them by name, didn't shake their hand, wasn't interested in their life. 30 days later, she taught them a lesson on snails, and all the children were rigged up to brain analyzing materials at this one point. The 15 children who knew they mattered, their brain was like a fireworks display. It was on, they were learning, listening to everything. The 15 kids who didn't feel like they mattered, their brain was literally off. It was off. There was nothing happening. So that's why I talk so much about, I call it connection over curriculum. Do not waste your time planning a lesson. Do not waste your time teaching anything until you've let the kids know, you know what, you matter to me, because you are literally going to waste your time. Those children who feel that they don't matter, they're not listening. They're not listening. Nothing's going in. So you want to give them a quiz on Friday about snails, and you say, why did you get zero? I'll tell you why they got zero, because you hadn't let them know they mattered before you started teaching. And that's the most crucial part.
Thank you. One of the other things I wanted to talk to you about in terms of creativity is your project on write a book to change the world.
So on school, we have about 150 courses that I put together. I have a team, and my co-founder Richard Mills is a teacher as well over here in Australia. We came up with this concept together. When I was a school principal, I had all these children, and I could literally just test things on them. Not like guinea pigs, but test new projects and curriculum content. And there was a little girl during COVID. She was really struggling with a lack of engagement because there's no school, and she was really struggling at home. Her mum and dad spoke to me and said, "Look, she's really disengaged." I said, "You know what? Let me have a chat with her." And I'd written a few books previously, children's books I've written. I actually wrote Kenny Dalglish's life story as a children's book for Liverpool Football Club. Yeah. Anyway, it's called King Kenny. This one. Anyway. I took her in the office during COVID. Schools were open, closed. And when
Yeah.
it became open, she came in the office and I said, "Hey, I've been thinking about you." And she said, "Oh, right." And I said, I was wondering, would you like to become a published author? And her eyes lit up immediately. She was only 9. She sat up straight away. She was so engaged. She's like, "Yes, I definitely would." I said, "How about we work together over the next 10 weeks and I show you how to write and illustrate your own book, and then we publish it?" You've never seen someone go from 0 to 100 motivation in 1 second. She was off immediately. And
Wow.
anyway, schools closed again a week later, as they always did, and she was home then. So every Saturday morning, I'd meet her online with her parents in the background. Obviously, child protection is 101. And I'd guide her on the next step of writing and illustrating this book. So 10 weeks later, she'd finished 24-page full color picture book, and I ordered a copy to be delivered to school. It arrived at school about a few more weeks after that, and she was in class. She'd completely forgotten everything that she'd even done. She was just busy. But there was a knock at the door. I went, and there's the parcel. I went down the classroom, and all the kids were working, and I, interrupted them. And I said, "I'm so sorry to interrupt you, everybody, but I have an announcement to make. We've got our first published author in school." She immediately turned around and was like, "It's me." And I said, "Here you go." And I handed her this envelope. I hadn't opened it. I
Wow.
hadn't seen, and she peeled it open in the class. She pulled out this hardback, full color, just like you would buy in W.H. Smith,
Yeah.
picture book called Sharky the Shark, or something about a shark who lives under the water, who's bullied but saved by a whale comes along and saves him. Anyway, it's a very beautiful story and concept. And immediately, every single child who saw that happen wanted to be a published author too. And they all started. I'm doing it. And they all got their papers out and just started writing their books almost immediately. About 3 months later, every child in school had become a published author, and they're all written these hardback picture books. Anyway, long story short, I left my job as school principal and I opened up school. And one of the first courses we built was Write a Book to Change the World, to bring this concept to children all over the world, to say, you know what, we're going to show you how to write a book too. And what happens when children write stories all around the world? It's one of the, it's in every curriculum on the planet, is it sits in a book on a shelf with a tick or a grade. And I thought, look, that's just not good enough. There's more to it than that. So we put together a course, and it's free of charge. Every child in the world can come and do it. It's not a problem, and it's completely free. And at the end of it, they publish and illustrate their own book. But the magic is that just as they upload it, we have a digital library online called the Upschool Library. Your listeners can go there and read these books. They're gorgeous. It says to the child, when anybody around the world buys a copy of your book, don't worry, we print it, we ship it, but anybody in the world buys a copy, where would you like the profit to go? And they have about 20 charities to choose from. Charities in Uganda that save girls and go to school, charities in Hanoi that put homeless children in educational facilities, charities that in Indonesia save children who are blind and allow them to see. All these wonderful, in fact, the Jane Goodall Institute is one of our charities too. And the children say, I would like to save chimpanzees. I'm choosing that one. Now, you buy a copy of the book from the library to your house, and the child gets an email saying, hey, by the way, Claudia, somebody in America has just bought a copy of your book, and you've just saved an orangutan, or you've just planted a tree, or you've just helped a child in Indonesia who couldn't see be able to see. So it gives
real
them
world impact, and the children's voice is heard, not just through their story, but through their choice of charity they wish to support.
Exactly right. So that's why it's called Write a Book to Change the World. You can see, girls in Uganda, they just don't get to go to school. That's really sad. Can I play a part in that? No, well, I'm just a kid. I can't do that. I'm just sitting in my house. Now you can play a part in it. And you get what I call the emotional kickback of your work. So really what we need as human beings, what makes us do good things is the emotional response we get from doing something good. Our body says you did something good, have some oxytocin in your bloodstream, and you go, oh, I feel so warm and cuddly. And that's why you put money in. There's a homeless man outside the supermarket with a hat. You pop in £1 and you walk away and you're like, feel good. Why do you feel good? Because a man smiled at you and he said, thank you. And you go, you know what? I just helped a person. I feel good. Oxytocin is in your bloodstream. So we tried to do that. Anyway, so the course has been, it's taken place with lots of children all over the world. In fact, we've got children in Gaza right now doing it, which is crazy to think about that, to say, I want to have a story. But I think what's amazing is what the children are writing about in their books is not just about nothing. They're writing about, and we try to direct them towards a value, choose a value. I've worked with, I don't know if you know, Professor Neil Hawkes, the inventor of VBE, values-based education. So he's a friend of mine, and I've worked alongside him with getting these values in place. And the children choose a value, and that value matters to them. But the story they get to tell is quite often their own story. And they get a chance to voice who they are, how they feel, what they've been through, but they get to disguise it in a picture book so suddenly they don't feel so vulnerable. Now, just so your listeners are aware, this morning we were starting this podcast and my doorbell rang. I ran downstairs, I turned my camera off, and I said, a book is here, I've ordered it, and now it's here. And so what I want to do, and this is not a setup, is here it is. In this envelope, there is a book that a little boy in Sydney wrote. And when I went to meet him, I went to his school to talk to him. He was a mute. So he'd come, he's lost his parents in a terrible, terrible accident. We won't go into that. And since that time, he hasn't spoken. He went to school and he wasn't speaking. He did the Write a Book to Change the World course. And during that time, he started to speak. And the book, I'll open it for your readers.
Oh my goodness. This is a true unboxing video right here.
Well, the book is called The Banana That Spoke. And so the little boy has disguised himself as a banana, to give himself anonymity.
Yeah.
And, here it is. So the book is called The Day the Banana Spoke. And this is the young man here, Banana. And, he made a friend in school, which is an apple, and he was unfortunately bullied by an orange in the story. And so, if you look, it's a hardback, full color picture book like you would buy in Dimmicks. It's got a blurb on the back. But look at this. This is look. There's a little picture there. Have you seen it? It says, "I miss you," and that "I miss you," that's his mum and dad. That's his mum and he gets to write his own story. And when you look inside, I mean, I haven't looked inside yet because this is obviously brand new. And this is all illustrated and written by a child on the Write a Book to Change the World course. It's like something you would buy in Dimmicks. And once again, you'll see, look, on that page, it's right there, look. You can see a picture of his mum and dad on the wall. And he says, Banana felt sad after a terrible accident. He thought he was all alone, really alone. And the story is his voice being able to tell the world this is what it feels like when you feel sad and alone. And his blurb says the story is about a banana feeling sad. He decided he didn't want to talk anymore. He felt very lonely. He tries to learn how to play soccer to get friends. Will he learn how to play soccer and speak again? And the magic is that it's a real child. He's a real child. And I met him, and I bought the book because I just thought it was such an amazing thing that could possibly happen. I had no idea that when I wrote the course that this kind of magic would happen out there in the world. And it's amazing. So, if any teachers or parents out there would like to engage in this, then it's free of charge. You just go to Upschool, find the course, and everything's there ready to go.
Brilliant. We'll definitely put a link in the podcast so that people can see that. But yeah, what a wonderful story. And that banana did learn to speak again. That child did, through that process, through that cathartic process of writing his feelings and that creative process of illustrating it. It really helped him and produced a fantastic book that will potentially help others as well.
When they write the book, we ask them to put a dedication page. They're asked to put this page, and he's put, this book is dedicated to the whole world to show them kindness, and so
that's
his
beautiful.
motive, his motive is like, I would like people to know how important kindness is and how it's affected his life. It's kind of like Mr. McKenny to me,
Yes,
he started this process to say, there was this apple in school who showed me kindness and literally made me speak again. And I think that's, out of the mouths of babes, we have so much to learn from these children. We underestimate them so much. We tell them way too much from our own minds. We limit their creativity by dampening their hopes because we've been, tarred by the world. Their imagination, their creativity is, uncharted. We shouldn't get in their way. I think when we step back and get out of the way, they do amazing things, really.
absolutely. And that's what I hope that this podcast will encourage listeners to enable our children to be more creative and to like you say, just step back a little, perhaps. Gavin, what's next for Gavin McCormack? What's next for you?
I mean, I like to take every day as it comes, of course, and see what happens around the corner. I'll be visiting Oxford in 4 weeks to talk at the World Literacy Summit. Um, I like, I wake up bolt upright in the middle of the night sometimes with crazy ideas that I have. And the thing is, when you're not working for money and when you're not trying to get profit all the time, you can literally do anything. And when you have the trust of the community, I work with I work with the 5 biggest schools in the world right now. And, 3 years ago, I was just a teacher sitting in a classroom. No one had a clue who I was or anything. And suddenly I'm working with Beacon House in Pakistan, 315,000 children, one school. DPS in India, 300,000 kids. CMS, 60,000 kids. Ryan Schools, 250,000 kids. GEMS, 50,000 kids. So these are the biggest, this is nearly a million kids just in those 5 schools. And so I came up with a concept with a company called Ep3, and they're from England actually. And what they do is, for $1.50, they plant a tree, and they plant a tree anywhere in the world. And usually they work for corporations like businesses. So I came up with a course called The Wonderful World of Trees, and children take this journey over 10 weeks where they learn about trees and X, Y, Z. And at the end of the course, in the last 2 weeks, we give them 100 ways that you can earn, not get, but earn $1.50. So, for example, one of the options is design 6 birthday cards and sell them for 25 cents a piece until you have $1.50. So you, for example, you might be like, oh, I love creativity, and you're only 7, and you go away and you make your little birthday cards and you make a little stall at school and you put them on the stall and you say, roll up, come and get your birthday cards, 25 pence a piece or whatever the price is. And when you've got your $1.50, you say, hey, Mrs. Johnson, I've got my $1.50, pop it in the pot. And the school takes on its journey for 2 weeks at the end of the course. And at the end, they count up all their money and say, we have got $500, whatever, it doesn't really matter. That money is sent straight to Ep3. Ep3 will then plant a forest in one of 55 countries. The school has a democratic vote. Where would we like to plant a forest? And they send it to Ep3, and let's say it's Madagascar or Ethiopia. Ep3 then plant that forest for you with local people planting it. A video is made of it being planted, and there's a huge sign saying Pinkerton Primary School Forest in Uganda, whatever it's going to be. Every single month, the school will get an email with a beautiful dashboard saying This is how much CO2 you've absorbed. This is how much oxygen you've produced. These are new habitats, and here's satellite imagery of your forest growing. So my aim for 2025 is to plant 1 million trees. And I'm looking for schools around the world, and I already have many lining up, to come along and say, we're going to do the Wonderful World of Trees course with you. It's free of charge. And then they go on this epic 10-week journey. And at the end, the school gets to say, we have planted a forest in this part of the world. It's a long way from our school, but we made a difference. And if we can get 1 million trees planted by Christmas, then I will be very, very happy indeed. So there's lots of things going on, but right now this is the one course that I'm trying to push because, I'm very excited about it. I think it's brilliant.
Fantastic. It does sound wonderful. And I think you have got such a creative mind, Gavin. All these possibilities and opportunities that you're providing for children, just popping into your head in the middle of the night, as you said. That to me is creativity as well. It's not just about our children, it's about us as educators thinking outside the box. What can we do? How can we make this happen? Not being limited, but opening up opportunities for ourselves and the children that we teach.
I agree. I think one of the worries that we face as teachers is we worry that it might go wrong and we might look bad as a
Mhm.
teacher or as a school. What if it fails? What if the kids only raise $1? What are we going to do then? But, when we can strip that away and get rid of that fear of failure and actually look at failure as success, because that's what it is in actual fact. Edison, he didn't invent the light bulb in 1 second. He had to try a lot. In fact, the guy, Dyson, who invented the vacuum cleaner, the Dyson is a billionaire, this guy.
Yeah.
He had 172 failed vacuum cleaners before he got it right.
Mhm.
So, if we avoid mistakes and avoid risk, then we get nowhere, and our children don't advance as quick as they should. So, if we can strip away that fear of failure from our whole schooling system, our teachers are very creative. It's being beaten out of them. Here's a document, say those words to those kids, give me the results so we can send it off to the PISA ranking system and see where we sit on the league tables. Teachers don't go into teaching to do that. You can get a robot to do that. Teachers go into teaching to be creative beings. They are creative. And if we take away their creativity, then that's a huge crime. So I think that teachers, are creative, in their mind from day one. Yes, I'm creative, but I have absolute freedom. I've got no one to answer to. I can just do what I want, put it online. If you don't like it, well, you don't like it. If you love it, then take it. And it seems to me that people are loving it. I'm taking it. So I think if we can give that freedom back to our teachers, we'll have a huge revolution in education. And the last thing I'll say is this: you don't go to the doctor and question him when he or her when she gives you a prescription. You don't go to an architect and say, "You sure these drawings are right?" You trust them because they are professionals. Our teachers are professionals. It's a profession, and it's an art. So it's about time we let our teachers teach how they want to teach and let them do it with their own. Of course, you need a curriculum, but let them have freedom within the curriculum, and then we can reimagine what education is like, and our students will be will bear, the benefits of that action that happens in our classroom. So I think if we can get there, we'll be winning again.
Absolutely. I think also sometimes it's a perception of a limit on the freedom. And one of the pieces of work I did a while back now is to explore what our legal obligations are. And then that showed how much freedom we actually had. Nobody was telling us how to teach, they were just indicating what we needed to teach. So the way in which we choose to teach it is entirely down to us. We didn't have to have a set number of hours for English, for maths. Let's combine them. Let's link them. Let's make real world links between these subjects, because that's what we do outside of the classroom. So why are we putting things in boxes inside the classroom? You need those skills, but you also need that interlinking to make sense, to give a context.
Well,
So
that's what the world is like in real life, in actual fact.
exactly.
Not everything is in silos, you actually combining skills. You call it cross-curricular, thematic, multidisciplinary learning. And,
Yeah.
as long as teachers have the skill to be able to do that, I mean, it's not hard. If I'm teaching literacy, I can certainly teach history at the same time. Why couldn't I?
Yeah.
If we're reading a text, why don't we read a text about, Henry VIII? And then why don't we, write a letter to a politician instead of writing it to the principal about changing the canteen or the school uniforms? Say to the children, hey, we're going to learn about letter writing today. And the children say, oh, that's great. So you know what? You're going to be able to choose something that really bothers you. What is it in the world that gets up your nose personally? Kids say, you know what I don't like? I don't like it that there's not gender equality. I think everyone should be equal. Okay, right. That's a really good point. I like that, Tommy. Who do you think in this world could help you change it? And you say, I don't know. Do some research. Go to the database, the school database, go on the internet, read a few books, and come back to me with a person that you think could help change that in the actual world. Tommy comes back and says, I found a politician down here. He's the head of XYZ, and he's our local councillor. Wow, did you get his email address? I did, and his phone number, and I got his postal address. What are you going to do? Well, I'm going to write him a letter, and I'm going to tell him what I think. Or I'm going to rally the entire school. I'm going to go class by class, and I'm going to promote this concept of equality, and I'm going to get everybody to write him a letter because I want him to come to this school so I can tell him what I think he should do. All right, let's do that. And suddenly, by giving that freedom of choice and that agency, it makes it real. It's now cross-curricular 100%. I mean, I could list 15 parts of the curriculum we've just ticked off just by giving him freedom to choose. And now it's real. There's a chance also for it to fail. I mean, is that what you want? Because maybe he won't reply. And there's a very, very good chance that he actually won't reply or he'll dodge the question. So what do? Do you give up? Or are you going to show us persistence and determination? I'm definitely not giving up. I'm going to write a letter every single day until he turns up at this school. So now we're developing those life skills, those resilience, that grit that we want in our children for the future. And that power that we want them to know that they have. Like, if I have an opinion, there's something I can do to get my point across. I do not have to sit here in silence hoping that somebody else is going to make that decision for me. And that is actually where we're falling down globally. I mean, just look at, I'm not saying either right or wrong, but if you look at Brexit, right? Brexit happened and a lot of people were very upset at the end. Did they vote? No, they didn't vote. I didn't vote. I thought somebody else would vote. Right. So you didn't go out and tick the box that you want to stay in Europe, but you thought somebody else would. You didn't realize that you had to turn up. You had to be there to make a difference. And I'm not focusing on Brexit just because you're from England, but we have that all over the world. Somebody else will do it. Don't worry. That's not going to happen. Actually, the power's in your hands. Small actions make big differences. And so that's what our children need to realize, I think, ultimately.
Thank you very much. That really concludes our discussion today. Really, really grateful to have you on. And thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
It's totally my pleasure. And if your listeners need anything, then they can easily find me online. Plus, just go to upschool.co. You'll find everything we've talked about, and everything is completely free of charge. There are some things that you can pay for, but the majority is completely free. So enjoy yourselves and let me know if you need any assistance along the way. And thanks for having me on. It's been really nice.
Thank you. I hope you enjoyed this episode with Gavin. Here is a little teaser for next month, where I speak with Dr. Poppy Gibson, an educational researcher and lecturer, on her views about creativity in education. Here she is with a few words.
Sometimes we have a very rigid view of what creativity is, and as a result, we think we're not good at it, as if it is a measurable thing. So yeah, 100%, we need more of it, and we need more confidence that we can all be creative. I feel like, and why I was so excited to come and talk to you, I feel like you're recognizing the things we really should be thinking about when we're talking about educating children and young people.
I have some fantastic guests lined up. Some you will know and some you will want to know. I'm really excited to announce I'll be releasing this podcast once a month, and I'll be talking with philosophers, artists, mathematicians, scientists, engineers, innovators and educators. If this sounds like you, maybe you have a view on creative thinking or creative expression, please get in touch by following me at ACPC4A, the number 4, on X, or Emma Palastanger on LinkedIn to connect. Please subscribe to this podcast so that you can stay up to date on the release of each episode. Thanks so much, and I'll see you on the next episode of Creative Minds Shaping the Future.